Brothers, this is going to be interesting. So much of what I've written is for everybody outside the people that are on the call right now, but that's okay because I'll just do it again that next time.
There we go.
So the question, I'm gonna put the question out first, and then I'm gonna put the question out a second time, and I'm gonna put a question out the third time, so we make sure we don't miss the question.
Okay.
So the question is, what do you want personally from this group? By way of the background, four of us met for 5 weeks before the first meeting, establishing guidelines and learning each other's strengths and weaknesses, figuring out how we would work together. And before this meeting, I went back and reviewed the reports. The AI that accompanies Zoom takes notes and summarizes the meetings. So our initial meeting was January 16th, and Gary established the guidelines for creating a safe and supportive environment. We started each session reading them, and we posted them in the chat. I wonder though if we conducted a survey, how brothers would describe what a safe and supportive environment actually is. Our life experiences might have us describing different definitions, or maybe still trying to figure out what that really means. The next meeting was the 23rd. That's the meeting I led, and I discussed the importance of having a purpose and a goal in life, using the analogy of driving to a destination. It's like we don't get in the car without a destination in hand. Also, we don't get in the car with a destination without mapping out the route. Unfortunately, it brought to my attention I did a very poor job of nailing down the focal point or focal question to be discussed, which is why the question is stated up front and will be repeated throughout. What do you personally want from this group? The next day or next week was Roshan discussing issues of adultery and emotional betrayal. Issues of trust, intimacy, and communication was discussed by the brothers, and some brothers shared their personal experience, and I have much appreciation for those brothers who were bold enough to share their personal experiences. At first I wrote how brothers had opened up, but when I used the word opened up, I kind of realized that brothers might not like the fact that I said open up, so I just said shared, because opening up kind of might seem like a dirty word to some people. The following meeting was Pat. Pat emphasized the importance of brotherhood and trust in overcoming life's challenges, highlighted the need for men to form close relationships, especially in the area of an absent father figure, to help navigate life obstacles. The funny thing is that Pat brought up the whole issue of absentee or absent father figure, but I don't really remember, and according to the report, no one really spoke about that. And that's really a key, because who are you following? Who is your role model? And you can also have negative role models. Negative role models are somebody you see what they do, and you recognize in your mind that's not the direction I want to go. Also in that meeting, Jaron asked the question, what does it mean to be a man? That was actually the first time that anybody brought up an ongoing occurring issue and put it on the table, other than someone that was the main speaker. So we definitely appreciate Jaron. And it was agreed that that concept of a man is a constantly evolving journey that we need to define. Uh, Last week, Gary talked about the topic of unforgiveness and its impact on individuals, identification, negative effects of unforgiveness, such as bitterness, resentment, health issues. Everyone seemed to have some area of experience that they spoke about when it came to forgiveness or unforgiveness, and might be something we may want to revisit again down the road. And the truth is, anyone that has been in a relationship has had to learn about unforgiveness and forgiveness to keep that relationship going. Every married person understands, or anybody in a relationship understands, that that topic, forgiveness, is an ongoing thing. Again, what do we need or what do we want from this group? We go to work to get a check. We go to the gym to get exercise and stay in shape. We read our Bibles to learn about God. We attend church to fellowship and participate in praise and worship. We get married presumably because we love our wives. Why did you join this Zoom call? What are you looking for? This question is more self-reflective. Maybe somebody can't answer today, but at some point you should have an idea of what you want or need from this group. And if you're going to grow and benefit from this group, you have to figure that out. Are these prospective relationships going to help you be stronger and better? I've heard a few times that brothers mention how good it is that men gather, and that statement to me suggests that it doesn't happen often. So will we take advantage of this opportunity? What do you need? What do you want from this group? For the younger men, it's probably easier to answer, because by God's grace, you have not reached the halfway point in your life. Jared already posed his question of what does it mean to be a man, and Gary shared that's an ongoing process. But for men over 40, what is your why or our why? Do you see any more challenges? Are you still growing in the knowledge of who you are or who you can be? Personally, I'm 66. I believe there's a lot more in me. I'm looking to connect with strong men of vision who accept life's challenges, which will promote growth and fulfill my God-given purpose. So I've entitled this Challenges, Growth, and Purpose. What do you want personally from this group? I've been a part of 5 men's groups in my life. This is the 6th. All of them were faith-based. Three groups were formed through an affiliation with a specific church. Each group served its purpose for a season. Most ended because they had evolved. They served their purpose in the season that passed. Others died because they failed to evolve. In one group, we were only allowed to use the pronoun I. You couldn't use you couldn't use they, you couldn't use we. That kept brothers from giving advice unless they had direct experience that could relate. And I'll give you a quick example. A friend of mine had put on Facebook that he had just had his wisdom teeth out. So I reached out to him, and we were just sitting there going back and forth about the whole experience. And the reason why I reached out to him, because when I had my wisdom teeth out, my roommate started telling me all that was going to happen, how I was going to feel, and all. He was just filling me in on everything. And I said, wow. I said, when did you have your wisdom teeth out? He said he didn't. And I spoke to him in tongues, but nothing you could translate on the day of Pentecost. Because I'm like, you ain't got no, you know, I got the anxiety of having this happen. And I'm listening to this dude like he's actually had it done, and he's going on. And when I ask him, he don't know what he's talking about. So needless to say, my anxiety was ready to just like light him up. Sometimes men don't need advice. Sometimes they need to vent. Every married man, raise your hand on that one. Another group I was with, we stayed away from scriptures. Why? Because brothers hid behind the Bible and scriptures rather than be transparent and authentic. One day we were getting together and the guy started going in on the scripture, and man, them dudes shut him down with the quickness. And they weren't even polite about it. They was like, this ain't no Bible study. So and in that group we really came at each other. We came at each other hard, but it was loving and supporting. We talked about, lust, divorce, marital issues, and people literally got hugs from brothers when they lit them up, and it was like, I'm lighting you up because I love you. So that was and that group evolved. I throw it out there as a cautionary tale also for this group. We all attend different churches, or maybe not attend church at all. We don't know where each person is when they're walking with God. So as you share your scripture, you may be on the top and people down the other end of the spectrum don't understand. Or you may think you're on the top and everybody here is ahead of what you're talking about. So that's why it's cautionary. And I give you another example. I was going to a brunch with two people I had met down here. One was a brother who was out of Hyde Park, and I was being introduced to him by this guy who happened to be a mortgage broker. And we're just getting to know each other. And with one moment we talk about sports, and another we talk about the industry, and then all of a sudden the white guy says, "Are you all saved?" Out of the blue, and I kind of chuckled. And he said, "Oh, you're on the fence." And I was like, I just kept quiet. So I let him roll with that. So now he's trying to, disciple us or hit us with scripture. Now the other guy, he answered he did not know. So this guy now thinks he's got somebody and he keeps going. But now as he gets in the scripture, I start asking him questions and it makes him uncomfortable because he can't answer them. And then I told him, I said, I'm actually saved and I have a strong relationship. And what I realized, he was young. He was probably in his first church. But he assumed that he was the strongest person at the table without first finding out who's there. And that's sometimes what we do because we want to share God so much, and that's fine. But find out who you're talking to first, because for all you know, you could be insulting them. Sometimes when I'm around church folk, they remind me of this poem. And the poem is called We Wear the Mask by Paul Laurence Dunbar. And he wrote this poem in 1895, and it was really about slavery. But I'm going to share some of the lyrics. We wear the mask that grins and lies. It hides our cheeks and shades our eyes. With torn, bleeding hearts we smile, and mouth with myriad subtleties. Nay, let them only see us while we wear the mask. The question is, are we wearing a mask, or do we actually want to talk to each other? Do we need to keep that spiritual mask on? Meanwhile, we have these issues that we can't get out. We're not getting anywhere, but we keep putting the mask on because then people buy into the mask, but it doesn't change the fact if you have a struggle, you're not going to be able to get past that struggle. You're not going to let anybody touch that because you got your mask on. The last group I was at with my last church just before the pandemic consisted of brothers who recently released from prison. And they were talking about the difficulties of re-entering society. And it was faith-based, but it wasn't just Christians. These relationships were built through mutual trauma, and they were mad transparent because these guys didn't have time to have a mask on. They were trying to catch up to what they had lost. And one brother just shared that he went to Walgreens because he needed to get some toothpaste, and he went down the toothpaste aisle and he ended up just staring at the toothpaste aisle and broke down crying because y'all been at Walgreens. How many brands of toothpaste are on them shelves? 30, 40, and he just stared at it. He couldn't make up his mind, and he just got overwhelmed. And those are the kind of stories that guys were sharing. They didn't have time for the mask. So what's my point? My point is, this is a season. Do you know what you want or need from this group in this season? Challenges help me grow. My growth brings me closer to my purpose in Him. I'm 66 and I'm still growing. Will this group challenge me to grow, thus fulfill my purpose? And again, do you know what you want or need from this group? And at this point, I'm open to listen, but I want to make clear, if you ain't figured it out, that's okay. But you need to figure it out. You need to know why you're taking the time to get on here. And if I could have the ears of the brothers that aren't on here now, I would ask them, why don't you get on here? Or why do you get on here?